Welcome to Things I Can't Say, the podcast for the things parents whisper, not post. I'm Annie, a parent who's walked through the quiet, lonely hallways of raising a child with traits that don't fit neatly into any of the parenting books, or on anyone's social media feed either. Each week we'll open the door to stories that rarely get told out loud. I'll start with mine, and then you'll hear from other parents, mental health professionals, and people who know what it means to live in the gray instead of the black and white. This is a place where shame loses its power, where complexity isn't feared but explored, and where love doesn't have to be easy in order to be real. If you've ever felt like no one else could possibly understand, you're not alone here. This is Things I Can't Say, and I am so glad you're here. Welcome back to my land of PTSD. I feel like I've said that before, but I am living deep in it right now. I have no idea which direction this episode is going to go, so bear with me while I semi-ramble to myself and you help me sort through all the things that I'm struggling through in my brain. Now, middle school was where our son took the significant downward spiral, where everything just crashed and burned. Mental health got so much worse during middle school. Our youngest, our daughter, is in 7th grade. We are approaching some similar struggles. And by similar, I mean mental health struggles, not at all the same. She is a very, very different child than our son. This little girl is filled with empathy for other people and really wants to do her best. And the trauma and PTSD and raging ADHD in her brain are making that really, really difficult. As I watch my girl struggle, it is triggering all of that past trauma with our son. And I'm trying so hard to separate the two children in my mind and separate their two situations in my mind and recognize that these are two different kids, two different scenarios, likely two different outcomes, and I can do this. My brain says we are going down the same path we've already been down, and I cannot do this again. Everything is going to burn to the ground, and clearly, uh, yeah, I know that's not true. I know that we're at a different place. Do you hear all of my deep breaths? This is what PTSD is. This is how it impacts my brain. It is not so much the random replaying of things that have happened. They don't just randomly pop into my head. They wait until there's a very specific trigger. And the thing that is being triggered regularly right now is how I need to advocate versus excuse or justify behavior in order to get my daughter the supports that she needs. And I feel like I advocated very well for our son. I don't question my advocacy for him, but I can think back and recognize now where he heard excuses and justification. And I know that people want to know why he's done what he's done and what the diagnoses are and what led to it and the what and the why. And people will tell me, well, that's an explanation. It's not an excuse. It's just an explanation. And explanations are good. It helps us from keeping it from happening again. I hear all of that. But I think that my focus on the why as he was growing up was heard in his head as an excuse, as a justification for his actions. He got to do the things he did because of what happened to him, because of how his brain worked, because of the diagnosis he had, because of his struggles with medication. Because those things happened, he could act the way that he acted without getting in trouble. It became an excuse. And I don't want that to happen again. I want to be very clear in my advocating that I am seeking the supports needed for success, her version of success. I am not seeking a justification for behavior. I'm not looking to excuse any behavior or any choices, but I do want help. I want all the help we can get. And when I talk about her version of success, like your child might be successful if they get a 95% on the science test. That might look like what your child can do as their best. For my child, success might look like actually sitting through the whole science class one day without disrupting the classroom, without getting up and running out of the classroom after being triggered by something another student says. It might look like I don't get a phone call home for an entire school day, or my child stays at school for an entire school day, um, because that mental health significantly impacts behavior. I I don't want anyone to ever hear me say that there is an excuse or a justification for harming other people, for saying mean things, for hurting other people, for disrupting a class, for making a teacher's job harder. That is never the thought in my head. That's never my intention in anything that I say. And because I don't like the word but. And I want to advocate to the depths of my soul with all that I am. I want to advocate for what my child needs to be their most successful. I feel like I have to, because if my child does not have the opportunity to be their most successful, it continues to impact their mental health in bigger ways. That lack of success, those failures that happen because there's not supports in place, impact self esteem in huge ways, which is such an interesting part of an ongoing conversation I've had about our son. Um, I don't know how to say this in a way that sounds appropriate, so I'm just going to try to explain it, and people can be offended if I say it wrong. But when you have a son who has some intellectual developmental disabilities, qualifies for disability services, has autism, like we have those pieces in place, okay? But he also is incredibly with it. And by that, I mean he knows all of his diagnoses. He knows where he fits in and where he doesn't. He knows where he should be and where he shouldn't. He knows if he's in a classroom of kids who function at a lower level than him. He's very aware. And because of that awareness of being out of place, that can impact self esteem. Am I making sense in trying to explain that? When you have a child who cannot independently function because of how their brain works, but they aren't low functioning, like our version of low functioning, where their IQ is lower, where they can't handle the day to day skills on their own, you kind of imagine that those kids don't necessarily recognize that they're low functioning. They don't recognize that they're with a group of kids who are low functioning. Our son very much was aware that we were labeling him in this developmentally disabled group, but he did not see himself as developmentally disabled. He saw himself as just like everyone else. He saw himself as perfectly fine. His IQ was in a fairly normal range. His ability to participate in conversations, like there was so much typical involved, but also so many missing pieces at the same time that trying to advocate for supports that made sense for him felt next to impossible because you couldn't put him in a classroom of low functioning people without him failing in that setting. That was not a good setting for him. But if you put him in a class of high functioning people, that's also not a good setting because he can't function to that level either. There was no good answer other than this one-on-one support for him. I am in the same sort of place with our daughter where I don't know that we have a diagnosis that explains what is happening. Um, and I need to be okay with that because I don't have to have a diagnosis to understand that we are not okay currently. What I know is that my child needs supports to be successful, and not having those supports and failing is impacting self esteem, which impacts mental health, which makes everything worse. I honestly don't know if I'm making any sense in talking about this because as I talk about it, I can feel it from head to toe in my body, like chills, ick from head to toe in my body because the thought of doing this life over again legitimately terrifies me. I so badly want to advocate for whatever supports are needed right now to avoid going down a path that we've been down. And I also don't know that there is any avoiding it. I don't know if avoiding it is what success looks like. We might have to go through it. We might end up at a place where there's another psych stay. And the thought, like me saying that we could in the future need another psych stay, another psych hold for another one of our children, the thought of that makes me want to throw up. I I want to throw up. And it causes me to want to protect her in an unhealthy way. I don't even know how to explain that. I want to keep her from going down that road so badly because I don't want to experience it again. And I know she doesn't want to experience any of that. I understand that. But also I know logically I can't prevent what is coming. I can't take away a mental health concern that hasn't even fully hit yet, that we don't even know what it is yet. I understand that there are pieces that are going to have to play out before we can get the supports in place to help it. And such a big part of me wants to put her in this little glass case and protect her from it. I know from all of the experiences that we've had that things like self-harming, I don't wanna say they're normal because they're never normal, but also they're not emergent. A lot of kids experiment with self-harming as long as the injuries are not something we need to rush to the ER for. I'm not overreacting to the self-harming piece. I know logically, I know these things. And as the topic comes up again with another child, my brain feels like it's short circuiting. I want to be calm. I want to be regulated. I want to advocate and help make sure she has the supports in every setting to be as successful as she can be. And also, I want to explain to everyone why she's doing what she's doing and how we could stop it from happening and why we need to protect her. And I am not as regulated about this whole topic as I would like to be. Which, if I'm this dysregulated on this topic, I just imagine the PTSD in her little body and why things trigger her so bad in various places. Because it doesn't take much to trigger mine. And I would say my trauma is not as intense as hers. I don't know. I wanna have the honest conversations that there are days that I just don't know, and even if I have walked down the road of worst case scenario, and I have navigated every option and every agency, and I'm the expert on all of the pieces, I still hit this roadblock of, "Oh, no, I don't wanna do this. I don't wanna do any of this. I want to bury my head in the sand right now and not do any of this again. I'll do whatever it takes. I will be there with her no matter what it takes." And I'm so scared. I'm so scared. I can't let that fear make decisions for me. I can't allow that fear to take the wheel, but it's hard. When you've lived this life, it is really, really hard to try to objectively see mental health as just mental health, as just manageable, as just something that can be treated and dealt with and managed at home. For us, mental health is an 8.5-month inpatient psych stay, and it's super scary, and lots of people get hurt. I don't think that's the direction we're going, and also PTSD says, "What if?" What if? For now, we work hard to advocate, not excuse, not justify, just to advocate for the supports that are needed to be as successful as possible, one day at a time, keeping that PTSD in check, knowing that that's what it is. Welcome. I don't know why PTSD has chosen me to be its landing place, but someday it will not feel as sharp as it does right now. I don't think any of this is ever going to fully go away. I just think someday it won't be quite as painful as it currently is. Until next time, take care of you. Thanks for being here, listening, feeling, and sitting with the hard stuff. If you've ever whispered a story like mine, I'd love to hear from you. You can leave me a message at mombehindthescenes.com because every story told gives someone else permission to share theirs. This is Things I Can't Say, the podcast for things you whisper, not post. Until next time, take care of yourself.